Right, gentlemen, we now start off with our scheduling chapter, that is the sixth chapter of PMBOK. This is about project schedule management, or previously we used to call it the time management. Now, the official name of this knowledge area is project schedule management. This is, as I said, sixth chapter of PMBOK, and out of the three baselines, this is one of the baselines. We have already studied scope, which was the first baseline. Second is schedule, and then the subsequent chapter 7 would be cost, and that is the third baseline. These are the three baselines which constitute performance measurement baseline, which is actually the integration baseline. So in this chapter again, we will be studying the 5 standard headings, like overview of project schedule management, then key concepts, trends and emerging practices, tailoring considerations, considerations for agile and adaptive environment. These are the standard 5 topics we'll discuss. But you remember that previously, from integration till today, whatever we have been studying, there was a lot of knowledge in these 5 headings. The overview alone was the summary of the whole chapter. And moreover, the key concepts were very important, trend and everything. If you have understood these 5 topics, then the subsequent processes of this knowledge area would automatically be very clear to you. Then we will cover the 6 processes of project schedule management. And the first one would be plan schedule management, which will actually be responsible for creating the schedule management plan. Like we had the scope management plan, like we will have the cost management plan. The very first process is always creating the management plan. So in this case, we are creating the schedule management plan. After we have developed the schedule management plan, which actually will include guideline for all the subsequent processes, like how to define activities, how to sequence activities, and so on and so forth. The overall summary would be provided here. How to guide will be included in the project schedule management plan. Then the next processes will be from 6.2 to 6.5. Define activities, sequence activities, estimate activity duration, and develop schedule. All of these 4 processes will be included in planning. So I can easily say that first 5 processes of schedule management are in planning, and only the last one, control scope 6.6, that is in monitoring and control. The behavior of monitoring and control will remain almost the same as in the case of scope or integration. But there is only one process, which is controlling the scope, controlling the schedule. The first 5 processes all are in planning, and that is one of the indications that this area needs a lot of detailed planning. Although we said all the knowledge areas need detailed planning, but the 3 baselines, scope, time, and cost, these 3 areas need a lot of detail because they will actually form the respective baseline, and that is the baseline which is to be executed. Schedule management includes all these 6 processes which I just have shown you, required to manage the timely completion of the project. So if we do these 6 processes in thorough detail, we will ensure the timely completion of the project. So that is the primary purpose, and these are the 6 processes, 5 in planning and 1 in monitoring and control. The next diagram shows the figure 6.1, which is a summary of the 6 processes showing all the inputs, all the tools and techniques, and all the outputs for each and every of these 6 processes. Although this we are not going to study from here, but naturally, if you want to have a quick reference anytime, this chart can be very helpful for you. But for studying purposes, we will go into detail of each and every one of them, and therefore we'll open up each box and discuss it in detail. So, are you able to see this chart?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wonderful,
Yes.
wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so we will open it up and we'll go into the detail. Let's talk about the key concepts here. Project scheduling provides a detailed plan that represents how and when the project will deliver the product, service, or result defined in the project scope, and serves as a tool for communication, managing stakeholder expectations, and as a basis for performance reporting. You see, a lot many things have to be scheduled. Rather, everything which will be done in project will have to be properly scheduled. So it is not only the matter of delivering the deliverable or the product, service, or result. This is not the only thing which is to be planned, but all the communications related to the creation of that product, service, or result, all the communication and interaction you will have with your stakeholders for managing their expectations, that will also be scheduled here. All the resources, when they have to be mobilized, it is also to be scheduled, and ultimately when and where and how which reports are to be distributed, all the performance reporting requirement, everything in the project, everything in the project, all the 10 knowledge areas have to be properly scheduled. And naturally, this is the overall responsibility of integration to ensure that schedule includes and represents all the knowledge areas. It should not only be focused on creation of the product, but while creating the product, it should also take care of the schedule for everything else. So that is the importance of scheduling. Project management team selects a scheduling method. You know, in the management plan, schedule management plan, you have to give a method, a mechanism, how the scheduling will be done. It will be clearly specified which scheduling methods are allowed for this project, whether you will be using critical path, critical chain, or some other method, whatever, or any agile method, whatever method you need to use for this specific project must be defined by the project management team in the schedule management plan. Then the project specific data, which would be created from the subsequent processes, like when you define the activities will become available. When you sequence the activities, their relationships will become available. When you estimate the duration of these activities, the durations will become available. When we'll put it all together, a network diagram or Gantt chart will appear. So the project specific data will keep becoming available through these processes, and we'll put it all together and form a Gantt chart or a project schedule. We will collect the durations, resources, costing, dependencies, other constraints, relationships, whatever. So everything put together through a scheduling tool. It could be a software, which could be a manual method, or whatever kind of a tool you are trying to use. So we need to have a scheduling method, we need to have a scheduling tool, and we need to have a lot of project specific data. All of these things put together will generate the first Gantt chart, or the first schedule shape of the schedule, which we call the schedule model. The very first shape the schedule will take after the data has been filled into it according to that scheduling method, and with through this scheduling tool, the first shape it forms is called the schedule model. Now this schedule model is highly versatile. This schedule model will keep changing as the data changes, and data changes a lot, because we are not really very specific about, we are not really sure about any data we have estimated. Say I assume that this activity will take 2 days, and someone says no, it will take 10 days. So I'm not really sure about how much time it will take. What if this activity is critical? How can I base all my decisions on 2 days? So if I decide to change it to 3 or 4 days, then whole of my schedule will be shaken. It will form another shape. A new version of schedule model will come out of it. So every time the project specific and there is any change in project specific data, the schedule model is regenerated, and this newly generated shape of the schedule is called a schedule model instance or a schedule instance. So we can go through a series of instances to reach a final shape of schedule. So uh, we have to do a lot of calculation. We have to be extremely sure, well, the schedule we are proposing is going to work. So before we can baseline the schedule, we have to play around with all the possibilities of project specific data and the shape project schedule is taking. The final shape which we are comfortable, our stakeholders are comfortable, our bosses are comfortable. So we will present the final doable shape of schedule to our bosses for baselining. Once that has been baselined, then there are no more questions. We will then start working on that. And in case of any change request later, then we can always change those that project specific data again. But whenever we decide to do that, it has now to be done through a proper change request. Remember, schedule is the most sensitive data. A little change in data will shuffle the whole schedule very badly, and we can't take a lot of chances. Therefore, the first baseline, even that took a lot of time, we wanted to be sure, and we played with many scenarios, and ultimately, with a lot of care and spending a lot of time in preparing the schedule, we have finally decided the final shape of a schedule, which we have gotten approved from our bosses, and ultimately, we have baselined it. Baselining means the ball is now not in my court, and if there is any change required, the change request has to be moved and approved by the authority which has baselined it. And only if if the authority allows, this baseline can be broken, it can be unfrozen, and we can again start working on various further options of correcting it. So I've just given you a brief idea of schedule model, schedule method, scheduling tool, project specific data, so and a schedule model instance and schedule baseline. Although we will discuss these things later also, and I know there might be a lot of questions about that, but I just gave you an immediate picture how these things work. So the ultimate result is the project schedule which we want to come up with, and so figure 6.2 will see that that provides a scheduling overview that shows how the schedule method, tool, outputs from the schedule management process interact to create a schedule model, how a model is created. The concept which I have given you in words will be shown in form of a diagram later. Okay, just hold on. There is something wrong. Okay, for smaller projects, if you are dealing with projects of smaller size, just hold on. I just lost my slides. Let me put them on again. A moment, please. Okay, do let me know when it becomes visible to you. Can you see that?
The result is a project schedule.
I
Sir,
lost you. I can't hear you guys now. Okay, let me move on. For smaller projects, uh, defining all these things, defining activities, sequence, all the processes involved in planning of schedule, uh, they seem to be so tightly linked that you think that these are not many processes, these are not five or six processes, these are just all are just one single process, and that can be done by a single person. I don't have any objection to that. Yes, of course, whole of the scheduling can be done by a single person. He could be an expert in scheduling, all right. But remember, each of these processes are there for a purpose. Each process needs to have a specialization or awareness about that specific process. Different tools and techniques are required for every process. So you just don't learn one or two skills or one or two tools and you say, I am master of all the four, five, or six processes. That is not really possible because the skills needed to be used, the tools and techniques required for each of the process is different. So yes, if you know all those tools and you are the only responsible person and you are doing everything by yourself in a small project, I don't have any objection, but I would strongly recommend that you must be master of all the tools and techniques. You must know and understand each process as an individual process and how to do it. You might be very good at creating a schedule, but you may not be very good at identifying the activities. Yeah, or you may not be very good at developing a network diagram. You are not really good at the concepts of sequencing. So each one of these processes have to be studied in detail as if you can do justice to each of these processes. I don't have any objection if a single person is doing all the scheduling. And for smaller projects, probably a single person will be doing it, and you may view it as a single process. I don't have any objection. But naturally, they are not single process. They have to be treated as separate processes, one after the other. And also, in a very complex project, you might have to have input of more than one people. A lot many people might be working on developing each one of these processes and ultimately joining the results together. So these processes are presented here as distinct elements, and every process has been separately and distinctly defined with separate tools and techniques for each process, and they are different. So you must understand that in that perspective. Some of these processes are presented more fully in the practice standard for scheduling, which is another standard, which is standard for project schedule management. And if at all you are interested to go through that, if you want to be a good scheduler, there is a separate certification from PMI, just like PMP. There is a certification which is called scheduling professional. Yes, you can become a scheduling professional, and that is not a low life kind of a certification. That is a certification which is PMP plus, meaning what? That in that certification, your whole knowledge of PMP will be tested along with your specialization in schedule management. So for all practical purposes, a person who is a scheduler is a full-fledged project manager. He is more than a PMP. He is not a general practitioner. He is actually a specialist in scheduling. Similarly, we also have a certification for risk management, which is called risk management professional, and that is exactly like that. You are a PMP plus a risk management specialist. Okay, so when possible, the detailed project schedule should remain flexible throughout the project to adjust the knowledge gained, increase understanding of the risk, and value added activities. You see, no matter what kind of a project, what kind of approach you are using, whether you are using predictive life cycle or agile life cycle or adaptive life cycle, whatever method you are using, but schedule is very sensitive. Even in predictive life cycle, project schedule is highly flexible because as I said, there is a lot of data going into the project schedule, and any of the data, the dates, the times, the dependencies, anything can change anytime. And if that changes, that will impact the whole project schedule. And ultimately, this is exactly what we are executing. So if something has changed, then probably the whole project will change according to that. So whatever the new knowledge gained and any increased understanding of risks or any value-added activities added, they all must be depicted in your schedule immediately, and your schedule must be amended accordingly, as if you are always working on the latest version of the schedule. So this is very important. So just explaining the concept of schedule method, schedule tool, schedule model, and the project specific data and all that. Just look at this diagram. Look at the bigger circle, bigger darker circle. When you are developing the schedule management plan, you decide on a scheduling method to be used for this specific project you are going to start. So naturally, this schedule management plan is for this project. So you would decide that's what is the scheduling method we would be using in this project. Depending on the need of the project, there could be, it is more sensitive than maybe I'm going for a critical chain method, or maybe, resource leveled critical path or something like that. But whatever is the method you are trying to use, you have to decide it beforehand that this is the basic method we are going to be using for this project. Because whatever the method you decided, the tools will be selected accordingly. So out of the many tools of scheduling available in the market, then you will select only those specific tools which fit into your scheduling method. Now you start collecting the project information. Like, you have the WBS. Now out of the WBS, the lowest level was work packages. Out of the work packages, you start creating the activities. Then you estimate the resources and duration. You try to develop the understanding about the dependencies, what activity is dependent on what should be finished as if the next activity could be started. So the relationship between the activities have to be decided. Constraints have to be taken into account, and then putting this whole picture together will actually be using the scheduling tools in the remaining within the scheduling method. Once you start filling that data with that scheduling tool, that will create a Gantt chart that will give you a shape how the project can be done. This is the first version of the schedule. This first version of the schedule is called the schedule model. So schedule model only comes into being when the project specific data is pumped into the schedule method through scheduling tools. The shape it takes is called schedule model, and this schedule model is just the first shape. This first shape is highly versatile as it changes if any one of the data could be changed. WBS is changed, the activities are changed, the durations are changed, the dependencies are changed. Anything, anywhere is changed. This scheduled management model is highly versatile. It will immediately be affected by any data. So, and with the change of any project specific data, the schedule model will form another shape, will take another shape. A new schedule model will be created. That is called a schedule model instance. That is one possibility how it could also be done. Then another possibility, then another possibility. There could be hundreds and thousands of various instances which could be created by variation of this data. But what we are trying to do here is we are trying to stabilize the schedule. It is just like a jelly. We are trying to, firm up. We are trying to look at all the possibilities, all the risks, and all what can happen. And ultimately, we are deciding on the most appropriate durations, dependencies, and activities and all that. And it will start stabilizing, and time will come when we will be comfortable with the whole of the schedule, and we would present it to the bosses for approving it, because the team is comfortable with executing this shape of the project, this instance, the final instance of the project, and we don't think that any further changes currently can appear into it. So we will get it baseline. When it is approved, it is baseline, and after that we can't make any changes to it by ourselves. If any change is to be brought now, that would only be possible through a proper change request. So this shape, which is finally approved, is called the schedule baseline. So the story started with deciding on a scheduling method, deciding the scheduling tools accordingly, calculating these project specific data and putting that project specific data through scheduling tools into the scheduling method, forming a schedule model, which is highly versatile, which keeps changing and forming new schedule model instances, which could be many, ultimately firming up to a final project schedule, which is presented for baselining. And once it is approved, then it is called the project schedule baseline. So we need to reach that level in 5 processes of planning. First 5 processes of planning, schedule planning, we will actually be reaching the schedule baseline. This is our target. Later on, processing the change request and then revisiting all these processes again for forming another baseline, it is again the same process, and the same rigor has to be taken into account. So in control scope, control schedule, we will go through the whole process once again. Again, schedule model will start fluctuating, and again we'll balance it out, and ultimately there will be another baseline after the change request. And every instance of the schedule could be presented in a number of ways. I have one set of data. I have one set of project data. This project data, uh, just a minute, just a minute. There is a heavy rainfall here in Islamabad and Rawalpindi right now, and probably you can hear the noises in the background. Okay, so I was saying the any shape of project schedule, no matter which instance it is the very first model or any of the subsequent instances or the final baseline, could be represented into a number of ways. I can show this data in a tabular form. I can show all of this data in a shape of a Gantt chart. I can show it in shape of a network diagram, or there could be 100 other possibilities how I can show this data. These various shapes any instance of project schedule can take are called project schedule presentations. Project schedule can be presented in a number of forms. So every instance can be presented into a number of presentations. It is also called project schedule instance presentations. So there could be many. So any shape you want to represent this to in front of your stakeholders is a presentation. project schedule presentation. Okay, with high levels of uncertainty and unpredictability, because in schedule you will exercise this problem that you are not really certain. This is the most uncertain thing in the whole project. Even if you are going for a predictable project life cycle, even then you have high order of uncertainty as far as the schedule is concerned. So with high levels of uncertainty and unpredictability in a fast-paced, highly competitive global marketplace where long-term scope is difficult to define, it is becoming even more important to have a contextual framework for effective adoption and tailoring of development practices to respond to the changing needs of the environment. First of all, schedule itself is highly edgy, highly sensitive. Moreover, the modern trends and emerging practices are also talking about a lot of uncertainty. So we have to adopt some other method through which we can be sure about what we are doing. So how can we resolve that? A very simple way of resolving that is that break, the whole job, whole work into small portions. You might have heard how to eat an elephant. If you have to eat an elephant, how to eat an elephant? You can't eat the elephant in one go. You can't put it in your mouth altogether. If at all you have to eat it, you have to slice it into small pieces and eat one piece at a time. Exactly, if this project is an elephant and you have to eat it all, then let us break it into small parts which are eatable, which are consumable, and eat one piece at a time. So in adaptive planning, what we do is we divide the whole huge project into very small capsules, very small sprints, very small iterations, and we do it one iteration at a time. You see, that same philosophy of adaptive planning uh, can be used here, which defines a plan but acknowledges that once work starts, the priorities may change and the plan needs to reflect this new knowledge. So, in a long term, it is very difficult to not make a flexible plan. So we have to have a flexible plan. So why not plan only a small portion and remaining everything, let it be flexible. So we only you know solidify or we only focus on a work of 1 month, which is not flexible, but remaining the whole project of say 6 months or 1 year or whatever is completely open to all changes. So this is how we can address this problem. Some of the emerging practices for project scheduling method include, but are not limited to, iterative scheduling with a backlog. This I have already explained to you, that you create a product backlog, and out of the backlog, you fix 1 month duration for each iteration, and you say how much work can we do in 1 month. Let us only focus on this 1 month and pick up that much job which you can do it in this 1 month, and remaining all the job you do not plan now. You only plan for 1 month. So this is iterative scheduling with backlog. So you accomplish 1 month job and then you pick further job and keep doing it in sprint by sprint. And second is on-demand scheduling. You will only schedule the further work when required. This is a very related concept to agility, but this is more towards what you call Kanban or lean. In Kanban, it says that we will only do the work when it is required to be done, when there is a requirement. And this is very close to the philosophy of just in time, JIT. Just in time, the thing which is supposed to be available at a specific point in time, that will only be made available at that point in time, not earlier, not later. For example, if I want to, have a workforce for constructing a house, that workforce should not be hired 6 months earlier, because then I will have to pay for those 6 months, and then we are not really sure that how many out of those resources will remain with us. So during these first 6 months, I may lose some of them, and they have been taking their salaries and everything without doing anything. So I should arrange it in such a way that the day the work starts, at that day, we should be able to mobilize quickly a workforce and be able to use it for the work. We don't want to make extra spending on the things. All the resources must be available just in time. That will save money, and that will save a lot of effort also. As far as iterative scheduling with backlog is concerned, this is a form of rolling wave planning. We have already talked about rolling wave planning. It is a kind of rolling wave planning where, based on adaptive life cycle, such as the agile approach for product development. The requirements are documented in user stories. You remember I explained to you what a user story is. So requirements are documented in form of user stories. Naturally, as I said, the epics are collected, then epics are broken down, refined into user stories, then they're prioritized. They're all lying in the product backlog that are then prioritized and refined just prior to construction, and the product features are developed using time box periods of work. Time boxing means the iteration. Iteration is time boxed to say 4 weeks or 1 month. So we have time boxed periods. We don't have phases here because phases are not time boxed. Phases are work based. We will accomplish this milestone. That is one phase. So here we are not talking about milestones. We are not fixing how much work is to be done. We are just fixing the time, and then in accordance with the time available, how much work can be done. This is to be decided by the team itself. This approach is often used to deliver incremental value. So every month we will be able to deliver something. And to increase the value of the work, we try to accomplish the high value targets earlier in the project. So if I accomplish 5 assignments, 5 works in one iteration, then they will be the highest value targets. So that will give us a big accomplishment. And remaining work which is lying in the backlog is still open for changes. So that can be through rolling wave planning, that can be improved, that can be could be added to it, or whatever they want to do it. We are not really concerned about that because we are not yet doing it. So we deliver incremental value to the customer, and that is a benefit. Customer is also happy that he is getting value, and we are also happy that we are delivering, and we are flexible, and we are fast. So these are the benefits. Or when multiple teams can concurrently develop a large number of features that have few interconnected dependencies. So if there is not a problem of interdependency, I can start doing more than one sprint simultaneously. Meaning what? More than one teams are simultaneously working, but then the work should not be interdependent, because we don't want the various sprints working interactively with each other. This scheduling method is appropriate for many projects, as indicated by the widespread and growing use of adaptive lifecycle for product development. The benefit of this approach is that it welcomes changes throughout the development lifecycle. So this is open, and we can always, customer can always come up with any changes. Stakeholder can change anything at any time, except only for the iteration we are going through right now. But even in that iteration, there is an involvement of customer, because customer can come in and view what we are doing, but cannot interact and cannot interfere with our working. But when we deliver the work, the authority which approves that work is the customer. Customer will be involved at the start of every sprint and at the end of every sprint. On-demand scheduling is a slightly different concept. This approach, typically used in a Kanban system, is based on the theory of constraints and pull-based scheduling concepts, from lean manufacturing to limit a team's work in progress. Now, this is a very good concept, and that is we should not be doing everything together. Meaning what? We should not be, we should not start all the work. If we have picked 10 items to work on in this sprint, and we start doing all the 10 items simultaneously, then we will not be able to accomplish any one of them in time. So let us reduce the work in progress. Do not increase the work in progress. Limit it. Limit the work in progress. Do, according to your capacity, take 2 or 3 jobs at a time, which whatever is your capacity, and first finish them and then pull new work into it. Don't try to do everything at the same time. So because that will be more inefficient. So you limit a team's work in progress in order to balance demand against the team's delivery throughput. If you can strike that effective value, then probably your throughput of the team delivery could be increased. That is called team velocity. You can have a better team velocity. You can more efficiently be working if you can limit the work in progress. On-demand scheduling does not rely on a schedule that was developed previously for the development of the product or product increments, but rather pulls work from a backlog. So it is also based on a backlog, but we do not, like in sprint or scrum, we do not uh, take 10 jobs to the sprint backlog, but we will keep pulling the work. We will pick 1-2 jobs at a time, and when they are completed, we'll pull another and then another, then another. So that way we will keep pulling work when we are free. So that way we can be most effective. We do not have a backlog of a sprint line with us all the time. So we'll directly be pulling from the backlog of the project. So this is your intermediate queue of work to be done immediately as resources become available. So you have limited resources. Remaining within those resources, you can be most effective this way. On-demand scheduling is often used for projects that evolve the product incrementally in operation or sustainment environments, and where tasks may be made relatively similar in size and scope or can be bundled by size and scope. So if it is such kind of a project in which you are producing, a similar kinds of products and a larger number of products, like in a production environment, you see, in a production environment where you are continuously producing a similar kind of a product, the Kanban is very useful. I am not saying that Kanban is most appropriate for the project, but it is most appropriate for the operations and production environment. But in projects also, we can make a very good use of Kanban if possible. So on-demand demand scheduling is a way of doing it. Because each project is unique, the project manager may need to tailor the way project schedule management processes are applied. So tailoring consideration and need, according to the need of your project, you will tailor the scheduling requirements. You see, considerations that for tailoring could be the life cycle approach, the availability of the resources. As I just said, if you have got limited resources, then you have to limit the work in progress. You should not pick up everything to do. You only should take up that work which you can handle. Your people which are available, the resources available, what they can handle. And you must also understand the project dimension and the technology support you have. These things will actually dictate what kind of tailoring considerations you need to have. How life cycle approach helps you decide that? What is the most appropriate life cycle approach that allows for a more detailed schedule? You must decide on that which life cycle approach you are adopting and which is most suitable. What method should you tailor it accordingly? Resource availability, as I was just saying, what are the factors influencing duration, such as the correlation between available resources and their productivity? So you need to reach the maximum, optimum effectiveness level. So you should not do something in which you are ineffectively using your resources. Use your resources most intelligently as if they can produce the maximum. Project dimensions: how will the presence of project complexity, technology uncertainty, product novelty, pace or progress tracking, such as whatever method you are using, earned value or percentage complete, whatever method you are using for progress tracking, they all impact the desired level of control. So what kind of control do you want to exercise on your project? That will also affect the way you want to adopt the tailoring. Technology support is technology used to develop, record, transmit, receive, and store project schedule model information. And is it readily accessible? Maybe you have got a software available for doing all that, and you have to tailor your project according to that software or that technology which is available to you. So yes, of course, you have to tailor it accordingly. As far as agile and adaptive environments are concerned, adaptive approaches use short cycles. As I said, small iterations. 1 month. 1 month is your short cycle to undertake work. So you only schedule for that portion of work. You don't schedule for the whole project. You schedule only for that portion of work. Review the results and adapt as necessary. These cycles provide rapid feedback. 1 month, only 1 month job will be evaluated, feedback will be provided, and we will learn lessons out of it, and then we move on to the next iteration. So these life cycles provide rapid feedback on approaches and suitability of deliverables, generally manifest as iterative scheduling and on demand. Naturally, in these kind of situations, we will be either going for iterative scheduling or on demand scheduling. And then pull based scheduling, just like we said on demand, pull based is also the same thing, on demand or pull based scheduling, where we pull the work when required for using our resources most efficiently. So these we already discussed in the key trends for emerging practices. In large organizations, there may be a mixture of small projects and large initiatives requiring long-term roadmap to manage the development of these programs using scaling factor. Now, how can you scale an agile project? Scaling means how can you do a project is all right, but what about doing a program on agile, doing a portfolio on agile? So this is called scaling it up. So there is a mechanism available in agile where you can scale up the agile. You can have many scrums happening simultaneously, as we have already said, but they are controlled by one big scrum master. Every scrum has a scrum master. Maybe 10-12% team is a scrum and there is a scrum master. Every scrum has a scrum master, but all these scrum masters may be reporting to a scrum of scrum master. So this is called scrum of scrums. You are scaling the scrum up, and there could even be another level. So this can be a hierarchy of scrum of scrum of scrum. So it could be like a portfolio. To address the full delivery lifecycle for larger enterprise-wide systems, a range of techniques utilizing a predictive approach, adaptive approach, or a hybrid or both may need to be adopted. We have told you how it can be done. It can be done in an agile way, it can be done in a predictive way, and you can tailor it according to your needs, whether you want to do it in a predictive or a agile way, or you want to create a hybrid at your own, in which some of the things are predictive and some of the things are adaptive. There is no restriction, but this is all open to you. So these must be considered when you're dealing with large projects. The organization may need to combine practices from several core methods, or adopt a method that has already done so and adopt a few principles and practices of more traditional techniques. In agile, there is nothing cast in stone that this is the method and why are you not exactly using it. Well, agile is agile. In agile, you can pick and drop some of the practices from one method and pick and drop some of the practices from another method, and you can come up with a hybrid. The role of project manager does not change based on managing projects using a predictive development lifecycle or managing projects in an adaptive environment. However, to be successful in using adaptive approaches, project manager will need to be familiar with the tools and techniques to understand how to apply them effectively. Well, I would say the role of project manager do change in a sense that the way he manages his team, that is changed. In a traditional uh, predictive development life cycle, project manager is the boss, whereas in agile cycle, project manager is a servant leader. That is very important to understand that in predictive life cycle, project manager tells his team what to do. He assigns jobs to his team and he controls them. In agile cycle, project manager does not tell anything to his team. He just facilitates his team. His team tells what they will do, and all the performance is a teamwork. It is project manager is not, dictating anything to them. Project manager is just like a team member. He doesn't have any special authorities, but he is only responsible for keeping an update on whatever is happening. So far so good. So should we move on to the first process? If you can't speak, then please write chat.
सर आवाज
जी जनाब, anything?
सर आवाज आ रही है
Avas is okay. Shahriyar, fine.
सर आवाज आ रही है
So the first process is project schedule management. The plan schedule management, which is responsible for creating the schedule management plan. The major output of this process will be schedule management plan, and that will provide us the guideline for all the subsequent processes of project schedule, like how to identify activities, how to sequence activities, how to estimate the duration of activities, how to develop a schedule, and how to control the schedule. All the processes we are going to be doing later, they will be planned here. They will be, I mean, not really planned, but the guideline for them will be provided in the schedule management plan. And that is the plan we are going to create in this process. So plan schedule management is a process of establishing the policies, procedures, and documentation for planning, development, managing, execution, and control of the project schedule. Meaning what? For the remaining project, whatever is to be done about scheduling is to be established. The guideline has to be established here. The key benefit is that it provides guidance and direction on how the project schedule will be managed throughout the project, and this is performed once and at predefined points, mean in the beginning of every project and in the beginning of every phase. But again, this is only true for predictive life cycle. If you are going for iterative life cycle, agile life cycle, then probably you will be making a broad outline plan for the overall project, and then for each iteration you will have a detailed plan, and you will only plan for 1 month. So in plan schedule management, the processes, the inputs we have, naturally, all the management plans need the charter and project management plan in whatever format they are available. So charter is completely available. Project management plan so far has the scope management plan ready and the development approach, which is useful for us, because this development approach helps us decide how we will proceed ahead with creating a schedule. Enterprise boundary factors and organization process assets will be there. The tools, naturally, you are very well aware of with the expert judgment. Somehow data analysis has been discussed many times, but naturally we will focus on what exactly we'll do in the data analysis here, and we'll conduct meeting. Ultimately, we will be coming out with a schedule management plan. If you want to look at it from data flow perspective, charter is coming from develop project charter. Project management plan includes the scope management plan and the development approaches coming from the project management plan, and organization is giving us the enterprise boundary factor and process assets, and we will be creating out the schedule management plan, which will become part of the project management plan. So you can see Project management plan is coming in and project management plan is coming out. Meaning what? The things which were available in the project management plan, we are adding something to it. We are taking help from the existing components of the project management plan, and we are creating another component, the schedule management plan, and adding it to the project management plan. And naturally, when the scope schedule baseline will be created, that will also be added to the project management plan later. That would happen in the develop schedule process at the end of it. So we have the project charter, the project plan, enterprise non factors, and organizational process assets. And probably we don't need to talk much about these things, except for project charter does provide us a summary milestone schedule. No, maybe the charter gives you a small little schedule. This is generally the dates the project should be done, or a small little Gantt chart, which is not really very exact according to your project, but that is able to provide you certain key milestones or key dates. So that could help us develop a schedule. This will influence the management of the project schedule. Then from the project for the project management plan, so far whatever is included in it, what is of interest for us is the scope management plan, which has been created already. This describes how the scope will be defined and developed. So that information is necessary for us to develop the schedule. And what is the development approach? What is the life cycle we are using? This will help us define the scheduling approach, what estimating techniques and tools we are going to be using. This will be dependent on the development approach. In enterprise environmental factors, what we would be requiring or seeking help from would be the organization culture and structure, the team resources availability, and skills and physical resources availability, because that will the availability of resource is a big issue. My duration of work will be affected by the people or resources available, and what is the scheduling software being used by the organization. And then the guidelines and criteria for tailoring the organization set of standard processes and procedures. How much are we allowed to, tailor the things? Commercial databases, if any, such as the standardized estimating data, if available, then we can always use that. In organizational process assets, from organization, we will get the historical information, the record from the previous projects schedules. Maybe we can get a lot many lessons learned from there, or from those repositories we can have older plans which could help us create the new schedule management plan. Existing formal or informal schedule development, management and control related policies and procedures and guidelines could also be looked at. Maybe we have some templates and formats available which we can use, or any monitoring and reporting tools. So all of these could be consulted and maybe made part of the schedule management plan. In tools, we have expert judgment, data analysis, and meeting. In expert judgment, naturally, we would need expertise about how the schedule should be developed, managed, and controlled, what the scheduling methodologies could be, predictive or adaptive, what the schedule software is, or do we have the expertise for that, and specific industry for which the project is being developed. So maybe, resources are dependent on that, lot many technologies are dependent on that. So we must have expertise, people advising us on that. These are the expert judgments. This is the source of expert judgment. Maybe subject matter experts are there. In data analysis techniques that can be used for this process include, but are not limited to, the alternatives analysis. What are the various alternatives available to us to do this job? This can include determining which scheduling methodology to use. This is exactly what we are going to decide in project schedule management. The schedule management plan I'm going to create, that will define what methodology to use. So that will be decided based on the various alternatives available to you, and that then will become standard for us. And how to combine various methods. Maybe you're using critical path method and you want to have special attention to the resources, or you would like to have the resource balancing and all that. So whatever methodology you want to use, you have to justify that and put it in writing. It can also include determining how detailed the schedule needs to be, the duration of waves of rolling wave planning. Now, maybe how soon the changes, how likely the project is to have changes. meaning uncertainty, will it be re-evaluated after every week or every month, or when you want to run the waves of rolling wave planning. If the uncertainty is high, then probably your waves would be coming every week. If it is low, then maybe after every 6 months. So how often it should be reviewed and updated? An appropriate balance between the level of detail needed to manage the schedule and the amount of time it takes to keep it up to date needs to be reached for each project. This has to be decided in schedule management plan. Schedule management plan is about this project, and specific to this project, these are certain decisions you have to make. Then in meetings, naturally your project team will be part of it, may hold planning meetings to develop the schedule management plan, and the participants naturally could be the project manager, project sponsor, your team member, and some of the selected stakeholders should also be there, and anyone else who is responsible for any schedule planning or execution responsibility, and could include anyone. Then we have the schedule management plan, which is the output. And as we have already discussed, this is one of the major components of the project management plan. And it establishes the criteria and the activities for developing, monitoring, and controlling the schedule. This is not the detailed plan, but this establishes the rules, the guidelines for doing all the subsequent work. Schedule management plan may be formal or informal, meaning what? Depending upon the complexity and the size of your project, it could be very detailed, it could be very sketchy, it could be very formal, it could be very informal. Maybe in a very, very small project, which could be done in 2 days, you may have an informal schedule management plan, which is only in the back of your mind. Or maybe you have drawn it on a whiteboard, and that's it. No more schedule management plan is required. So whatever the detail requirement is there, you will accordingly work on your project. But naturally, as I said, better it is to write it down and in as much detail as it is possible. Naturally, I cannot write a 500-page document for a 2-day project. This is not justified. So it may be very informal, it may be broadly framed or whatever. And on the other hand, a detailed project could be highly detailed, it could be very formal, depending upon the needs of your project. And it includes appropriate control thresholds. This should establish the schedule model, how the schedule model will be developed. And I have already discussed with you establishing the scheduling methodology, the tools, project specific data, putting them all together into a schedule model, and then creating the instances and ultimately getting it baseline. This all is the process of schedule model development. How that can be done, this would be earmarked there. Release and iteration length if it is an agile project. Level of accuracy, how accurate you need to go for this project. What are the units of measure you're measuring in seconds, minutes, or days, or hours, or weeks, whatever, depending upon the project. Organizational procedural links, whatever activities you are doing, how are they linked to your WBS? There must be a numbering scheme in WBS which you are referring to. Project schedule model maintenance, how this model is to be maintained. You have developed this model, but once there is a change request and that is approved, how this change is to be inducted into the schedule, and how it is to be unfrozen and then frozen again, baseline, rebaselining, how it will all be done. What are the control thresholds, rules of performance measurement, and reporting formats? This all has to be established in schedule management plan. As far as the schedule model development is concerned, as I just discussed with you, scheduling methodology and the scheduling tool to be used in the development of the project schedule model are to be specified with enough reason. Release and iteration planning when using an adaptive life cycle, the time box period, how much it will be. I have been giving you an example of 4 weeks. It could be 4 weeks, it could be 2 weeks, it could be 6 weeks, depending upon the type of project you are doing. Maybe these, whatever we are saying, 2, 4, or 6 weeks, these are more appropriate for the software development. But maybe for construction, nobody has tried it. Maybe the time box for a construction project may be 3 months. So whatever you decide, this is tailoring you can do. Time box periods are durations during which the team works steadily toward completion of a goal. Time boxing helps to minimize scope creep. Now this is very interesting because for uncertain situations, if we are doing time boxing, your scope will not creep. Everything will be in control because you're designing only for 4 weeks, and out of these 4 weeks, nothing is skipping. But if you have planned for the whole year, then there might be some small little things happening. Scope may creep, as it forces the teams to process essential features first, then other features when time permits. So on-demand scheduling and all those concepts will keep you focused, keep you dedicated. Level of accuracy specifies the acceptable range used in determining realistic activity duration estimate and may include an amount for contingency. Units of measure, how are you measuring it in staff hours, staff days, weeks, whatever. Organizational procedure links, as I said, the numbering system you use in your work breakdown structure, the reference to that is your organizational procedure links. Scheduled model maintenance, process used to update the status and record progress of the project in the scheduled model during the execution of the project is defined. Control thresholds, how much slippage of time is allowed, maybe in positive or negative sense. Maybe your unit of measure is a day. You are measuring your activities in days. Then how much delay is okay with you? You say this is no problem. Is 5 minute delay okay with you? Is 10 minute delay okay with you? In 1 hour delay okay with you? So when it becomes painful for you, you say, oh, 1 hour delay is too much for me. Then probably 1 hour delay means that you are delayed by 1 day. You can consider that we have exceeded a day, and more than 1 hour means that we have entered into the next day, and therefore we are 1 day late. So what constitutes the delay of another day? 1 hour, 5 minutes, or maybe in some cases it could be 4 hours because the working hours are 8 hours per day. And you may say that my project is not that sensitive, and up to 4 hours I can bear the delay. If anything is more than 4 hours delayed, that means it is 1 day delayed. I hope you understand this point. So various thresholds for monitoring schedule performance may be specified to indicate an agreed upon amount of variation to be allowed before some action needs to be taken. If an activity is more than 4 hours delayed, then I will take action like moving the change request or something. Thresholds are typically expressed as percentage deviations from the parameters established in the baseline. Rules of performance, well, that depends upon what method you are using. If you are using earned value, which is a preferred method, then earned value management rules are other physical measurement method could be there. They have to be established. Generally, we know and we understand that earned value is a much better system, but most of the organizations are not using it. They are using some other method of measurement, maybe percentage or something like that. For example, schedule management plan may specify rules for establishing percent complete. How do you say that this work is 100% complete? How much should be done to constitute 100% complete? EVM techniques. If you are moving earned value technique, then what are your baselines? What are your formulas? How do you compute the percentage complete, etc., and how it is to be employed? If you are doing the schedule performance measurement through schedule variance or schedule performance index used to assess the magnitude of variation to the original schedule baseline. So whatever method for performance measurement you are using, it must be prescribed there, it must be defined there, and in what formats you want the reports to be generated, and what frequencies should be there for those reports, or weekly or monthly or whatever. So this brings us to the close of project schedule management. The schedule management plan we have created. And next is the define activities. I don't know, we should start it now because it is almost 1 o'clock in Pakistan. So what do you say? You can write down your comments here if you like. Okay, Sharia, your questions. Uh, Concept of control threshold. Okay. We can Yes, of course. You can ask questions. How can we do that? You want to write one question at a time? Okay, write your first question. Sharyar was saying earlier about the concept of control threshold. Is it so? Okay. Okay, Sharyar, you collect all your questions, and maybe in the start of next session tomorrow, we can answer your question. But as far as the control threshold is concerned, I have again flashed the slide in front of you. Um, you Control threshold is the variance threshold for monitoring schedule performance may be specified to indicate an agreed upon amount of variation to be allowed before some action needs to be taken. Like, when could you say that we are now delayed? Okay, let's talk in terms of money. If you have got, uh, you have a salary of 100,000 rupees, what constitutes nothing for you? If you lose uh, one paisa, will you be concerned? Or when you lose 5 rupees, will you be concerned? Or when you lose 10 rupees, or you lose 100 rupees, what is the level of threshold of your concern? Because as soon as you lose, say your threshold is 5,000 rupees, anything less than 5,000 rupees does not matter to you. That means you can give away this money to someone. You are not really bothered about 5,000, any amount up to 5,000. But as soon as you lose 5,000 rupees, you are concerned because that is giving you a kick in the back. This is your threshold. Similarly, for time, you have to reach to a meeting, and how much, 6 p.m. is the time to reach there. How much can you delay? If you are delayed by few seconds, will it be okay? If you are delayed by a minute, will it be okay? Will you be, if you are delayed by 5 minutes, will it be okay? If you are delayed by an hour, will it be okay? So it all depends for this specific situation. So your control threshold may be according to that situation. Maybe, in marriage ceremonies, you see everybody is coming late, and normally the marriage ceremonies start after 2 to 3 hours later. So it is all right for me to reach there at least 1 hour, 1 hour late, because nobody comes earlier than that. So maybe if I am 1 hour late, that means I am the first person to be there. But in another appointment where I have to reach, maybe I am the chief guest in a ceremony, I can't keep them waiting because everybody is waiting for me. Probably I should be in time. How much in time? Maybe I can fix that not more than 5 minutes late, or maybe even 5 minutes is too much in certain circumstances. It could be not more than a few seconds late, right? So you establish the control threshold after which the definition of late starts. So if an activity is late, how do you define late? How much late will constitute an action? So thresholds are typically expressed as percentage deviation. How much, how much percentage are you deviated, as if it can, some other action should be taken. If chief guest is not there for more than 15 minutes, will they be arranging for an alternate chief guest and continue with their proceedings? That is the decision. So 15 minutes is the threshold. I hope I clarified this. No, 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 no. This has nothing to do with lead and lag. I will explain lead and lag, but this has absolutely nothing to do with lead and lag, right? This is nothing like that. Okay, let's leave it for further discussion, and we will meet again tomorrow. And I hope the people who are missing these lectures would be there, and inshallah I'll send an email with all the backlog lectures being sent to you by email. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for your company and for your patience in such a bad environment where you can't sometimes talk. So, thank you very much and take care, please.